Folks, they're never booing. Oh, no. Slow your roll there. They're Kruging, baby. I'm talking about Larry Krueger in the house, the Krug Show, Golden Days. We're back. Basketball's back. You ready to do this, Krug?
Let's do it.
Here we go. It's Krug Show and the Golden Days.
That is it for us today, and we will leave you with I can't do it. No. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. And things suck. Woo! Let's go.
In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Come on and break me off. Cause I get what I want and I like what I see. If you got
Hello and welcome everybody to the Golden Days and the Krug Show. It's Tuesdays. That's our day, right? We don't know what the time is, but Tuesdays. We should probably come up with a good name for a program. How the hell are you doing, brother? And you got sponsors. Name your sponsors.
Oh, well, heck, I mean, Pig in a Pickle, the title sponsor of the Krug Show. We're also brought to you by Mancini's Sleep World. Thanks to Mancini's. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles along the Monterey Peninsula. My good friend Anthony Catania is at 831-521-5264. So there you go. Some of the, just a smattering of the sponsors attached to the Krug Show.
I love it. And the official sponsor of Golden Days is Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. And Larry, even though the theme is Warriors, this gives me a chance to stray a little bit from the basketball discussion and ask you immediately, while I have you on this program for once a week, your thoughts on that Niners game, man. I mean, Brock Purdy looked good. He was sharp. I know it's the Patriots, but were you encouraged? Were you disappointed by that game? And did the Niners cover the spread? I'm guessing they did, but your thoughts on that game real fast.
Did they cover the spread? That's the good one. The spread. Now I teased it down, so I had the Niners -3, so they covered.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they covered the spread. It was 10.5, and they won 30-13. I mean, the 49ers are playing well. I mean, this was a bounce back game. They had to have it. They're 2-2. JP Mason has been fantastic. He had 24 carries for 123 yards. Brock Purdy is nothing short of miraculous. Deebo Samuel got healthy this week, so they had Deebo and Jennings and Ayuk and Kittle. They were all out there. They're still missing Christian McCaffrey, and they may not have him this year because of tendinitis in his Achilles, both right and left. So that's kind of a bummer. And they lost Javon Hargrave for the year, their big defensive tackle. But the 49ers, in my mind, still look like the premier team in the NFC. So we'll see.
Did you, real fast before we talk Warriors here, somebody wrote a column out there, I can't remember who it was, saying that maybe it's time for Brock Purdy to take over, meaning like no huddles, having a pass-heavy approach, which I know Kyle Shanahan is all about a creative run attack. He's old school in that sense, and I love it, man. I think football needs that as well. But what are your thoughts on those who think Purdy should just be let loose? Like, give him 35 attempts a game, 40 attempts, no huddles. What are your thoughts on people who think it's time for Purdy to take over?
Well, I mean, he is taking over. I mean, he ran the ball 5 times for 11 yards. He's running all over the place, creating extra time. The thing with the 49ers is, it's a better run blocking O-line than a pass blocking O-line, and you've got a hell of a running back now in this kid Mason who goes for 5 yards a carry virtually every time out. So
and catches the ball.
And he catches the ball. Well, this year he does. I mean, he bought a jugs gun and he's practiced on catching the ball, and he's now turned himself into an excellent receiver. So, I mean, they had 32 runs and 27 passes. I would love to see that be even more run heavy. I'd rather see, 35 runs and 25 passes, something more along those lines. So I would push the other way. I think Purdy already is throwing the ball a lot, but their line, they need to play complementary football. They've lost a little bit off their defense. They need to dominate the time of possession. So to me, that means run the ball a little bit more. And they run it so effectively. I mean, they ran it 32 times against the Patriots, and they averaged 4.6 a carry.
That is
so
beautiful.
If you're averaging, over 4.5 yards a carry, run the ball.
Yes. Oh, easily, right?
Yeah.
Easily. And last Niners question for the day. In this middle of this Bet Online read, the Niners are favored this Sunday by 7. If you're a betting man, and Larry, at least I am, do you bet on the Niners? Is that too big? Your thoughts?
That is kind of a lot of points. Arizona's playing well, and I think it's going to be a close game. So I would say that's probably too many points. Now, I do think the 49ers are likely to win. So if you could tease that down to a pick'em type situation, and maybe that's the route I would go. But I don't know. I'll have to wait until closer to game time. Cardinals, though, until this last week against the Commanders, were looking pretty strong. So, and I think it's a dramatic step up. Arizona is from playing New England. So I'm not loving that line.
I hear you, man. Seven's a big line. And look, regardless, go to Bet Online where they have every stat, every matchup, live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. And for the folks out there who think they know their stuff, get in on the $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread each week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. And when the game's over, do what Larry and I like to do. Kick back, put our feet up, pour ourselves a stiff one, light them up if you got them, create the casino ambiance. So when you're online with Bet Online playing blackjack or poker or unwinding with over 150 slot games, you could feel like you're in the casino. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. Larry, a few days ago, the Warriors, not the Warriors, but the NBA was blessed with a blockbuster trade. It was almost like a sign that basketball is here. Karl-Anthony Towns was traded by the Minnesota Timberwolves to the New York Knicks. The Timberwolves get back Julius Randle. They get back Dante DiVincenzo, former Warrior. Julius Randle, I feel like would be great on the Warriors, but much more significantly, Karl-Anthony Towns would have looked fantastic in a Warriors uniform. And we were talking on the phone, and you thought this would be a great discussion. I agree. Real fast, first and foremost, people have heard my thoughts on that trade. Before we get into the Warriors aspect of it, what were your thoughts on that trade in general, man? Like, were there winners? Just your thoughts, man? What did you think about that blockbuster?
Well, I mean, Randall's a big talent. There's no question about it. He's an old school, back to the basket, drop steps on the low block, kind of a power forward. He's a big bodied guy, but I mean, he's also had all kinds of emotional problems, and he's battling with this guy and battling with that guy and battling with management and battling with refs. And I just think there's a lack of maturity there from Randall. I also think he's probably played his best basketball. He's 29. He's probably crested the hill as far as he is probably what he's going to be, and he's making a grip of cash. I mean, he's making almost $30 million, and he's probably not a $30 million player. DiVincenzo is a combo guard who we saw here, who's, he's also making a grip of cash. 11.5 is what he's making. And I don't understand. I suggested a long time ago, like a couple of years ago when I was on 95.7 The Game, I'm like, Warriors ought to go for, Cat, ought to go for Karl-Anthony Towns. And it was like, what? No way. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I thought you guys know basketball. I mean, this guy's 7 feet. He's 250. He's 28. He averages, 20 and 10, and he's a big man, a modern day big man who can step out and nail threes, and he can stretch the floor. I mean, to me, if the Warriors got Karl-Anthony Towns, I don't know if they had the pieces. They clearly didn't. Or I don't know, maybe they didn't want to go after him. I don't know. But if they had Karl-Anthony Towns with what they currently have, I think the Warriors would be back in the title contention mix. Agreed. But without him, I mean, to me, they're on a road to 37 wins or something. It doesn't, I don't think they're a 40-win team. I think they're a sub 40-win team this year. I know what people are saying. Oh, it's 500. They'll be lucky if they're 500. And I heard Draymond Green talking about, this is like our, past years where we had depth and this and that. And yeah, they got some depth, but I mean, They're not the deepest team of all time. I mean, it's a, they've got some decent depth. They've got better depth this year than last year. But I mean, he's comparing it to, when they had Otto Porter and that team that won the title. But I mean, that was Steph Curry at 33. That was Draymond Green at whatever he was, 31. Now Draymond's 34. Steph's 36. I mean, it's like they're not at the same spot in their career. So, yeah, are they deeper than they were last year? I guess you could make an argument, despite the fact that they struck out for Markkanen, they struck out for Paul George. I'm not a fan of slow-mo, just not. I like Buddy Hield. I like Buddy Hield on this roster. I think Buddy Hield is going to help them quite a bit. I like Kevin Knox based on what I saw this summer. And Melton is not a bad combo guard if he's healthy. The big man post that they just got out of BC supposedly can shoot the rock, and Lindy Waters also is a shooter. So they've added some pieces, but overall, the additions that they made make them slightly deeper. But the overarching theme is that Steph and Draymond, the two best players on the team, are older, and they're not going to be better at 34 and 36 than they were 2-3 years ago. So, I don't get it. I mean, I'll watch, and I'm optimistic for the season and all this, but I'm not optimistic that the Warriors are going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, I'm very skeptical. That's the best way I can put it. Is I'm cautiously optimistic, but very skeptical. They still have tremendous size issues. What do we for the Golden Days audience, and I guess for your audience as well, Larry? I'm going to be hosting another show at about 3:05 with Sophia Jones, as I normally do on Tuesdays. We're going to reschedule that for another day because, Larry, you and we're going to own Warriors basketball on Tuesdays. But even though we're going to talk about Karl-Anthony Towns and prospective trades for the Warriors to make improvements, let's hear that Draymond Green soundbite. And again, the show, an hour from now, I'm going to play a lot of clips from Media Day. I was there myself. But for the clip you referenced, let's just present that to everyone else because it is very pertinent. Draymond mentioned this offseason as well that he's involved in terms of the front office trade discussions. They're reaching out to him. They're reaching out to Steph. And according to Draymond, he told the Warriors not to make a trade because it would hurt them. Who knows what he was referencing, whether it was Lowry. We don't know who the player was the Warriors were discussing trading. Maybe that was Kuminga. But here's Draymond Green talking about that comparison between 2022 and this year in terms of depth and how important depth is.
We're going to sign a Buddy Hield. We're going to sign a DeAnthony Melton. We're going to sign a Kyle Anderson and just pluck away and chip away at it. I thought that was incredible. I thought it shows who this organization is, and it is a testament to Mike Dunleavy and who he is as a basketball mind, a guy who's grown up in the NBA his whole life. And like I said, in most situations, you see someone panic and they make a move that set them back for 5 years. And you set one move in this league, it can pretty much set you up for how the next 10 years of your organization is going to go. And, sometimes the best deal you can make is to not make a deal. And I think, we did a great job in going out and getting pieces that's going to help this team grow, that will allow young guys opportunity to grow, and yet keeping the future of this organization as bright as it's ever been.
And that's GM Draymond Green for you. Your thoughts on what he just said, Larry?
I mean, it's a gigantic word salad. You ought to run for office.
Yeah,
I mean, what the fuck? I mean, what was that? I mean, was anything in there? I mean, we're supposed to react to that? I mean, wipe your ass with that. I mean, what the hell was that?
I don't know, though.
I mean, what is he, on The View? I mean, what the hell? I mean, seriously. I mean, thanks, Draymond. Sometimes, so sometimes the deal that you make, I mean, here's the Warriors. We want Markkanen, but we're not giving you Kuminga, and we're not giving you Podziemski. So what the hell are you offering? You have nothing to offer. Sometimes the best deals are the ones you don't make. Yeah, when you offer nothing and ask for something, You're not going to get nobody's going to do your deal. I mean, was Dunleavy wearing a stocking over his head when he made that offer? I mean, come on. Nobody's taking your crappy offer. And if you don't want to pay real prices, then guess what? Status quo.
Yeah.
And we'll see how with that, I mean, what a bunch of nonsense.
It was a lot of nuts.
These guys have had their asses kissed to such a degree that they just spit out the dumbest things. I mean, it's just the idiocy that comes out of some of these answers. It's like, sometimes the best deal you make is the one you don't make. Oh, really? So you're better off for not trading for Lauri Markkanen? And what's this awesome? Who's this awesome player that you were going to trade away that you're not? That's going to be phenomenal now that you don't. The Warriors are they don't know what they want to do. They don't want to trade Kuminga because they're afraid he'll be good elsewhere, but they don't want to pay Kuminga. So it's like, what are you going to do? You don't want to pay him. You don't want to trade him. It's like, show me what the plan is.
I don't mind Kuminga not getting his extension yet, just because you're not going to lose him for 2 more years. In all likelihood, the extension will come next offseason. I like the idea of incentivizing him to work even harder this coming season, right? So he's not a fat cat happy with his big contract extension. But I hear what you're saying, man. It's the Warriors have to do something. This roster is perplexing in its current form. And I played.
He sounds like no cap 757 here at 225 has it right.
Yeah.
He says Draymond sounds like he don't care about winning anymore. He got his big payday. That's all he cares about. That's what I took out of that as well.
Yeah, and he's going to have a career in the media as well, right? He's already got the Draymond Green show. Maybe. Let me ask you this, Larry, before I play this second clip from Mike Dunleavy Jr. And I played this before on my program, but it fits perfectly in with what we're talking about today. You saw we haven't done a show in a while, man. I missed you. You saw Stephen Curry play in the Olympics, and I know you've been saying for a while that he's past his prime. Whatever that means. Maybe he's still at his prime, but it's. Do you still believe that? Like, do you think Steph is a has been, which I know by his standards still means he's an all-star, he's one of the best players, but do you think he's peaked, or do you think he's still as powerful as he's ever been? Where is Steph to you right now?
Well, I mean, it's the way aging typically works. It's not that he can't do what he's done. He just can't do what he's done as consistently as he's done it.
Fair.
So
That's fair.
So yeah, if you want to dial up a special moment in the Olympics, or you want to, there's going to be games this year that Steph Curry is the Steph Curry of 3 years ago. There's no question. But there's also going to be games like the next night where he looks old, and he looks like he's aged, and he looks like he's lost a step or lost a little bit of his talent. So that I think, and as the years go on, you'll see fewer and fewer examples of Steph in his prime and more examples of Steph looking old. But yeah, there'll be times this year where he's going to go and there'll be people on the broadcast saying, Steph Curry looks the same as he's always looked. And for that night, they will be correct. But then the Steph of in past years would play like that every night, and now he won't be able to play like that every night. He'll play like that Friday night, and then Sunday night he's going to play poorly, and then Tuesday night he may play really well, but then Thursday night he's going to play just okay, and then you know what I'm saying? It's going to be a little bit more up and down.
I absolutely do, and it's kind of like what we've seen with LeBron, right? Where with the regular season, he's good for 50, maybe 60 games a year. It's the regular season part of it. That's about as good of as an analysis as you could have given, because Steph at his age, he can't do it for 82. And I hope the Warriors are aware of that fact as well, right? Like, you got to save him for the postseason if you want to have any shot. Here is Mike Dunleavy Jr. I played this clip a couple days ago, but I can't wait to get your reaction, Larry. You're on fire today. I love you, brother. This is Mike Dunleavy Jr. talking about the possibility of the Warriors making an in-season trade. We all know they try to make a deal during the offseason. Whether it was Picky Steve just not being happy with, the players coming back, whether other teams were asking for too much, who knows? But here is Mike Dunleavy Jr. talking about making a trade this year.
How flexible do you feel to make an in-season trade? And I guess the apron that you talked about, how much of an inhibit do you feel that will be? And then, do you plan to be aggressive?
Yeah, I mean, that's the deal here. You're always looking to get better, improve your team. I think we've got a lot of ways to do that. We've got a lot of good basketball players, and then on top of it, we got most of our assets. So we got ways to improve. We'll be aggressive. That's kind of always been the deal here, at least as long as I've been here. So does that mean we're definitely going to do something? No. I mean, we were super aggressive last year around the deadline, didn't do a whole lot. So you got to have a partner. Making deals in this league can be tough, but the effort, the urgency will always be there.
Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I mean, if we're going to talk about the deal here, we might as well talk about the deal here. Here's the deal here. The Warriors let 3 people ask questions. That's the deal. Okay? Nothing against Slater, nothing against Poole, nothing against whoever the third person is. But you know what?
Kendra Andrews is usually your number 3.
If you're going to have an open media situation, then maybe you should have, I don't know, maybe questions from, how about 5, 6, or 7 people? How about 8, 9, or 10 people? I mean, the 49ers don't have, hey, you 3 people can ask questions, and the rest of you people shut the hell up. Right?
Well, and I love that you brought that up before we get back to
I think that's really manipulating the media to only allow 3 people that are paid, that are somehow connected to your broadcast and, people that you have kind of control over asking the questions. There's no independent media. Is there anybody that they don't have kind of control over who can ask questions?
Well, Larry, sorry to interrupt you, but just to add to that, yesterday during Media Day, just to provide some context for what you're talking about, Stephen Curry was at the podium, and he got questions from more than 3 people. But like the first question came from some French journalist who asked this really long-winded, loaded question about his thoughts on the election, his thoughts on the vice presidential debate.
Like,
it was ridiculous.
Get out. Just get out.
It was ridiculous.
Somebody just grab that person.
It was ridiculous, and we were laughing.
Shut up!
But then after him, it was like I said, it was Monty Poole, it was Anthony Slater, Kendra Andrews, and then Damon Bruce, our boy. You do a show with him 3 days a week. Him and I are going to be doing regular stuff as well.
He asked a question of Steph.
He wanted to ask a question of Steph, but then Monty Poole, who already asked 2 questions, just grabs the mic and asks a third one. And Steph had been up there forever. So I don't blame them for wanting to wrap it up. But yeah, there was Monty Poole. Like, no, 2 questions was not enough. I want a third. And then it was over, and Damon got screwed out of asking the question. So that's sometimes how it goes, man. They've got their favorites. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Go ahead, sir.
Well, there's just people that don't want to be asked a tough question. And so if you don't want to be asked a tough question, just get people who are cheerleader people to ask questions. Why do a real interview when you can sit down with fake interviews? Okay. Well, as far as Dunleavy, don't tell me how hard it is to make a trade. I mean, come on. It's hard. Life's hard.
Exactly.
Life's hard. Don't tell me it's hard. You know when it's really hard to make a trade? When you're not offering anything. I mean, let's take a look at the Warrior roster. I'll name a player. Does anybody want to trade for these guys? Kyle Anderson. No. Reese Beekman. No. Steph. Yes. Draymond. Yes. Buddy Hield. No. Blake Hinson. Only you could tell me who that even is.
I saw him for the first time in my life yesterday. Big dude. He's got a big body on him, but I have no knowledge beyond that. That's all I can tell you.
a big 6'8" guy. Trace Jackson Davis has trade value. They don't want to trade him. Kevin Knox, anybody could have had him. No value there. Jonathan Kuminga has trade value. They don't want to trade him. Kevon Looney has very little trade value. D'Anthony Melton, very little trade value. Moses Moody has trade value, and they would trade him, but, what's he really bringing?
And his value is not that high, obviously, because if it was, he would be gone. He'd be long gone by now. So,
right. Well, and his value is probably greater than his trade value, so why trade him? And then Gary Payton is a good role player, but has no real value as a trade guy. He's a throw-in. Pajemski's got value, but they don't want to trade him. Quentin Post is an unproven guy. Jackson Rowe might as well be, Reggie Jackson. I mean, it doesn't matter. He's not making the team.
No.
Guy Santos probably has value, but very little. Pat Spencer is not even the best basketball player in his own family. Lindy Waters is a combo guard who can shoot a little bit, but he's
He
just
might not make the team either.
Just
He
a
might not
guy.
make the team either.
Wiggins is tradable probably if he shows that he's over his personal whatevers and is going to play. So, I mean, you got 3 or 4 guys that are tradable, and none of them do you really want to trade. The only guy that you have on this team that's tradable that you actually might consider, the 2 guys that you actually have trade bait or that have trade value that you might actually trade would be Andrew Wiggins and Moses Moody. So that's just it. I mean, they don't have a lot of tradable assets, and the assets they do have, people don't really.
Nobody wants Wiggins.
Is anybody dying for? I play 50% speed. Andrew Wiggins at $26.2 million on the salary, and he's got $200 million in the bank. So he's got all kinds of reasons to just dog it. And then there's Moody, and I like Moody, but Moody's there's 27 Moody's in this league. They're all over this league. These combo guys that are pretty decent but not great. I mean, it's like, so what? They got nothing. They have nothing to trade. They've made all the moves they can make. This is why Myers is a Washington Commander executive and not a Warrior anymore, because he saw the handwriting on the wall. This thing's played out. It's played out. I mean,
and speaking of that note, by the way, the Commanders, look at them. They're actually a relevant, decent team again. I mean, the Bob Myers effect, man. Look at Bob.
Who knew? Maybe Bob knew. No, but I mean, see, the Warriors don't. I mean, we'll do our due diligence. We'll, it's like what you're going to do is you're going to win 37 games, and you're going to be, talking, enthusiastically about the play-in tournament from Valentine's Day on. Oh, the play-in tournament. Oh, you never know. So hey, you know what? For some Warrior fans, that floats your boat. If that's what gets you going, go for it. Knock yourself out. I personally, I don't need the Warriors to win the title every year because I'm a lifelong Warrior fan and I saw a lot of worse teams in this one.
Oh yeah.
But I've seen a lot worse teams in this one, but I also have seen a lot of better teams in this one. And I know that this is not a playoff team. I mean, it would take the perfect trip from Kerr, the perfect health season from Draymond and Steph and Wiggins. And it would take, probably a creative deal, and somebody out of the woodwork's going to have to really shine. That's not, that hasn't showed themselves yet. That's a tall ask. If all those things happen, they could be, a 42 win team.
The more I think about it, Larry, I feel like the Knicks just were clear winners of that trade. I mean,
oh yeah,
you gave up Julius. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo was the more important asset there, and you essentially traded DiVincenzo for Karl-Anthony Towns. Mike Weisberg in the chat writes, the Warriors didn't have the assets to make that deal with Karl-Anthony Towns, and he might be right. Do you agree with that assessment? Because when you look at as you just mentioned, right, you just went through 1 through 14, determining the value of each of these players. I mean, you could have maybe traded Kevon Looney, Gary Payton II, I guess Brandon Pajemski. They're not taking Wiggins back. Like Minnesota would not have done that, and you would have needed to include Wiggins to make the money work, since Cat's making nearly $60 million a year, which is insane. So
the Warriors he's probably right. The Warriors probably couldn't have made it work because Cat makes so much money, and the high price guys that they have aren't as good as Randall. So yeah, he's probably right. But I mean,
and it also means
it's like if you're saying that as a way to alleviate blame on the Warriors, then you're kind of fucked up because they put together this entire roster. It's if you're saying oh well they couldn't have done this, okay, but I mean they've been running the show for a while. It's every guy on the roster is there at the price tag that they wanted him at, and if they don't have the team they want, it's kind of on them. You're probably right. They of course I know Cat makes a ton. I probably could come up with a trade that would have worked on the trade machine that would have brought Cat to the Warriors, but it would have been
right. You get a third team involved. That's
a third team, but but they would have had to take Peyton's contract and Looney's contract and all these contracts of guys that are just broken down and not very good, and so why would they do that when you can get Randall?
I hear you. They can't be complacent. This current roster, again, I'm with you, man. Like the over under for this team is 43 and a half wins. And if you're going to bet, you're either betting 44 wins or 42 and less. And I'm not touching that over right now, man. With this current roster, and you look at the West, hell no. I mean, I'm staying away from that bet altogether, but
I think I'd like to bet some of the people in the chat here. King Corey, Warriors going to be a top 6 team watch. Hey, King Corey, put your money where your mouth is, buddy. Let's wager on that. I'll take that right now.
There are fans out there who, again, right? Isn't the old adage like it's a clean slate, a fresh start? That's the beauty of sports at the beginning of every season. So there are fans out there who want that optimism, and the reality check can be brutal. Sorry to burst any bubbles out there, but it could happen. Who knows? But the likelihood of it is not great. It sounds like, look, you and I feel like we're on the same page, man. We play a probability game in terms of imagining roster construction and the likelihood of success. And you play that probability game with this Warriors team, and in all likelihood, like you said, not going to happen, dude. You need Kuminga and Pods to take massive leaps. You need the Wiggins of old. I want to play one more soundbite real fast, by the way. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not going to play soundbite, but I want to bring up Andrew Wiggins because I thought I had a soundbite. I apologize for that. What are your thoughts on Wiggins, man? Like the fact that he came into camp last year out of shape, that's absurd. His father passed away, RIP. I hope his family's doing all right. That's not an easy situation. If that was the catalyst for Wiggins' mental issues or whatever the issues were that kept him out of games, had him distracted, had him out of shape, all indications are he's in shape now. If his father's situation was the issue, that's hopefully now something he can move on from. What's your take on Wiggins, dude? Because you look at the clips of just 2 years ago, and this guy was special, but it was just 1 year. Your thoughts, man? Can we expect anything from Wiggins in your eyes?
I mean, the Wiggins, it's unbelievable that this guy has regressed.
Yeah.
At this point, it's truly unbelievable. They won the title in the 2021-2022 season, correct?
Correct. No, 2020. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, correct.
So It wasn't last year, and it wasn't the year before.
Correct. This is now year 3 since the title. Yes.
Okay. So I'm looking at his rebounding totals, and his rebounding totals were for the year basically, they've always been right about 4.5, 5 rebounds a game. That's his entire career. But in the second half of that season, he took off as a rebounder, and he just devoted himself to rebounding in the playoffs. And he gave the Warriors, by playing defense and rebounding, he gave them an element of size that they weren't banking on. And it fueled their run to the title. And yet you would have thought he would have learned from that and just became a much more dedicated, work hard rebounder. But nah, he hasn't. I mean, his rebounds basically the same all the way throughout his career. He had that one spurt and they won the title, but did he learn from it? No, because he kind of regressed since. So I don't know. I see a guy who's played his best ball. He's played his best ball. He plays, he can do anything. He can put the ball on the deck and take you to the front of the rim. He can shoot the 3 ball. He can D you up. He can do anything when he wants to. But he's got $200 million in the bank, and he kind of coasts. And, he fit in when he came over in the 2019-2020 season. He fit in perfectly. Why? Because he was a guy that could score, but he didn't need to score and really has kind of a passive whole approach to the game, and he kind of drifts. Well, on a team that had so many other shooters, it was like, hey, he fits in perfectly. The guy's a great chemistry player. But then when you need him to assert himself and to become one of the leaders on the team, no, he's not there. And then, his personal problems, I don't know, who knows what they were, but they kept him away from the team. Obviously, that has hurt the team dramatically. Nobody wants him in the league, so you'd have to attach other assets to move him.
That's bad, dude. That's bad.
His scoring was as high as 23.6 a game in year 3. It was 22.4 his final year in Minnesota. This last year it was down to 13 points a game. So he just hasn't really played very much. 59 games. I guess he played 71 last year, but 37 the year before that. I don't know. It just seems like he's a guy that has a great body for basketball. Like he doesn't miss, over his career, he doesn't miss games. He doesn't miss games for health reasons. So in a way, he's a great guy to have because he's a two-way player who doesn't really miss games for health reasons because he's got enough athleticism and his body's light enough where he can get out there every night. But he just seems like he blends in well because he doesn't assert himself. And that can be good on a super talented team, but on a team where you need him to assert himself, you find yourself wanting him to assert himself and he doesn't. So I don't know. Personally, he's totally forgettable. And if they could move him for somebody who plays with more passion, I'd prefer that.
Steve Kerr said recently that he wants Andrew to take 6 threes a game this coming season, which is crazy. I don't know if that'll work or not. I'm so stoked you brought up that.
He's only done that, by the way, twice in his entire career. He's only taken 6 threes a game.
He's not a bad 3-point shooter, but 6 a game. I just, if that's what you're counting on, but you brought up something really fascinating, and I want to just build on that for a second. And that was Andrew Wiggins' rebounding numbers the year they won the title. In March of that season, he averaged 6 rebounds a game. Then you go to the playoffs. Against the Nuggets, he averaged 6.8 rebounds per game. Against the Memphis Grizzlies, averaged 7 rebounds per game, had 2 double-digit rebounding games that series. In the conference finals, he averaged 7.2 rebounds per game. Against the Celtics, he averaged 8.8 rebounds per game. With that said,
that's like twice his regular season average.
Absolutely correct. And this is why I've been saying time and time and again, that's not who he normally is. What happened there was so out of the norm that to rely on that and expect that is almost foolish, man. And part of that too is the fact that the Warriors just were not playing against big teams throughout that entire postseason run. You're not going to have that luxury again, probably ever. That was just a total fluke run where you were fortunate enough to not have other big teams as obstacles in your path. So I'm with you, man. Is there anyone else out there? Oh, one other thing real fast. And I highlighted this in the chat because, or I didn't highlight it, but I saw it in the chat and it's relevant from Matt Brotherton. If I could find it again here. Matt Brotherton in the chat wrote, Wiggins is here to get a paycheck. He's the definition of checked out. Losing a parent can really mess you up. Hope he uses it as motivation, but I doubt it'll happen. And just to add to that, and this is where I started getting peeved with Wiggins. He was overheard. And I've said this once before, and I'll say it again. This is an exclusive report here. He was overheard last year, about a year ago at this time, telling someone in one of the tunnels of Chase Center, I don't know if it was during media day or during a preseason game, it was early in the year, telling someone else, and he was overheard saying this, so he wasn't even smart trying to be careful, telling someone how lucky and how fortunate he was to have signed that contract extension when he did. Basically saying, thank God they gave me another paycheck because otherwise I would have never done this, and I'm cooked. It's absurd, man. And I really hope we see the version that we saw in 2022. But yeah, we shall see. Any final thoughts on Wiggins before we, as we start to wrap it up here?
No, he's totally forgettable. I have about as much passion for my thoughts on him as he has for the game. So not much.
Is there anyone out there? We've talked about Cam Johnson with the Nets. We've talked about the Trailblazers having both Time Lord and DeAndre Ayton. We've talked about Kyle Kuzma. The Warriors are going to play a waiting game. They want to see some situation where a player they really like is can be gettable. Is there anyone that I haven't mentioned that sticks out to you or that is a dream target? Karl-Anthony Towns clearly didn't happen, but Giannis is I think the ultimate dream is the goal. But is there anyone out there that you're looking at, or did I just name everyone?
Well, I wanted to see Markkanen, but obviously that didn't happen. I just think that their best maneuver might just be to kind of back out of some of their guys and just see if you can build around Steph and see if you can make some trades. That's what I would try to do. You don't want to waste Steph's final years. You don't want him to send him somewhere else. If you have a really bad year this year, which I think it's going to be a really bad year, what happens? Does he ask out? Does he say, guys, I love you, but let me go to the Knicks? I don't know, but it just seems like they're not going to be able to put a championship caliber team around him anymore.
Oh my God.
And it's like, okay, I agreed with the decision to move on from Clay, but I also think they ought to, try to see if they can make some creative deals and try to get younger, either try to get more draft picks. Maybe Dunleavy's not the right guy. Maybe they need to go after a guy like Sam Presti who can, accumulate assets, and look what he built Oklahoma City into. And if you can build Oklahoma City into something in the middle of nowhere, you probably could build the Warriors into something. I just don't know and it's like, is Dunleavy? I don't even really want to get upset with Dunleavy, because is he even the guy? It's Joe and Joe's kid.
We don't know
Joe and
yet.
Joe's kid that are making all the decisions. I think Dunleavy's just there to carry out the wishes and to, you're right, Joe, and answer the phone and press conferences. Joe's smart enough to know that if he ran out Bob and put his kid in there, that would be a high pressure situation. So he did the next best thing. He ran out Bob and put his kid in there, but then used Dunleavy as the buffer. So Dunleavy's the guy that will get the blame. But I'm sure his kid him and his kid are the ones who are making all the decisions.
They're making a lot of them. There's no doubt about that. And if there's any solace to what you just said, it's that his kid did at least play college basketball at Stanford at a D1 program. So he at least knows hoops. Like, he's not a stranger to it. He's not just some suit who, oh, daddy, you own a basketball team. Can I work for you? Like, it's not entirely a situation like that. No doubt there's nepotism in place. Your boy, Larry Harris. I don't know if he's a candidate. I don't know. You know him way better than I do. I don't know if he has the acumen to be that difference maker in the front office, but I'm totally.
Oh, he definitely has the acumen. It's just a matter of, do they want to keep Larry Harris as their brain.
Okay.
You know what I mean? See, if you make Larry Harris the boss, then it's just like you have to lean on him. If you make him your head scout and make him report to you, then his thoughts become your thoughts, and then his evaluations become your evaluations. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
so
I do. Absolutely.
I think that it's like, they want to be able to, Joe spent millions and billions or whatever on this toy. He wants to be able to play with it, and he doesn't want Larry Harris to tell him what to do. So he'll pay Larry a good sum. He'll keep him on the payroll, and then he'll listen to Larry, and then he'll do what he damn well pleases.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think that's what's going on there. And this is the way basketball is, by the way. It's not like it's your birthright to go from title to title. The Spurs did it because they got Duncan. But if they had gotten Van Horn, it wouldn't have gone that way. And Van Horn went next.
Great call. The Keith Van Horn call. Look at you, man. That's an old.
Yeah, they got Duncan instead of Van Horn. And, Patino wound up with Van Horn. And Patino wound up back in college. You know what I mean? And Popovich suddenly, thinks he's the smartest guy in the world because he coached David Robinson and then coached Duncan. Suddenly he's the smartest coach.
When we reconvene next week, I want to play a clip. I had Gary St. Jean on the program recently, and I brought up what you've talked about a lot, which is who deserves the credit for being the genesis of the dynasty, for kickstarting this thing, for being the brains behind it. You mentioned that Don Nelson doesn't get enough credit for that. because Larry Riley was the one who actually drafted Steph. And on next week's show, I'll play that clip because I asked Gary St. Jean, who I feel like would know as well as anyone, the truth behind that, given he's Nelly's boy and close friend. I'll save that for next week. Any final thoughts, Larry, before we go? Any sponsors you need to give love to one more time or anything like that?
No. We've given enough love to sponsors. I would just say, I've been a Warrior fan my whole life, and
you're SF born and raised, correct? Like you're born in the city. My first Warrior love was, Bernard King and World Free, and so, I always loved the Warriors, and I love going to the Warrior games for all the years, even when they were bad. I enjoyed the great years, but I don't enjoy the fans that came with the great years. And I don't want to see the team fall on their face, but I would like some of those bandwagon fans to go away. Because in reality, they're not fans. They're just fans of titles. And that's how I felt about when Pac-Bell Park, aka AT&T, aka Oracle, whatever they call it now. That's how I felt when that Palace was first opened. Because I grew up and you did the same, man. We were going to Candlestick and that freezing weather for those night games where that cavernous stadium was empty most nights. And then they opened up that beautiful gem of a stadium and the place was filled and became trendy. I felt the same way 20 years ago with the Giants. And I hear you, man. It can be annoying. By the way, I just don't like these people that talk with total certainty about every aspect of the Warriors, and yet Victor Alexander could walk by them on the street and they wouldn't recognize him. Great call, dude.
I mean? Cliff Rozier could pass you on Bart and you don't recognize him. And yet you're the biggest Warrior fan with the Warrior jersey and the foam finger and the this and the that. And you're telling everybody in all these blogs about this. And it's just, I don't know. In some ways I kind of would like to see those people have to endure, 1/100th of what we endured while still calling ourselves fans. I will say this too. I think this is the year where the Warriors ought to try to look to do something dramatic. I know Draymond's talking about depth, and depth is nice if you also have enough for, top level talent, but they don't have enough top level talent. So I know they've got depth, but I would like it if they had a little bit more than just depth. If to me, they're 35, 38, 40 wins, definitely a sub 500 team.
Energy Manifest, before we go, brought up that and this is piggybacking off Mike Dunleavy Jr. I couldn't find the clip, but Mike Dunleavy Jr. said he thinks Trace Jackson Davis, whose listed height is 6'8", by the way, that surprised me. I thought he was at least 6'9". He apparently grew an inch, and the story goes that Trace Jackson Davis this offseason was feeling some soreness in his knees. Larry, I don't know if you remember feeling growing pains growing up. Like that stuff hurts where you're growing and your bones are stretching out, and that pain is real. Trace Jackson Davis claimed he felt that this last offseason as a 24, 25-year-old man, and he grew another inch. I don't know if you saw that, but it was fascinating to me. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that either. But
well, it is interesting. He is a young guy. I will say this. It's like, I said this in training camp last year. I'm like, Trace Jackson Davis needs to play.
Yes, you did.
And Steve Kerr obviously knows more basketball than I do. I didn't know, but you know what? Why did it take so long to get Trace Jackson Davis on the floor for any appreciable amount of minutes?
Ramona Shelburne covered it beautifully in an article she wrote 2 months ago, which really just repeated what we've been saying for years regarding that, which is that Steve Kerr, like that championship at 22, made Steve Kerr just want to keep that band together and just run it back for 2 straight years when everyone else could see you've got to evolve, man. Just because you won a title with that group doesn't mean it's going to work again. You have to keep progressing and improving. And yeah, he was the holdup. It pushed Bob Myers out, man. He didn't want to be a GM for a team where the coach was being stubborn and sticking to the same players who did win. But again, this is an evolving league, constantly changing, and you can't just be stagnant, dude. So I hear you, man. I hear you. I love you, dude. Always great to do this. Anything else? Are we good? Are we out?
No, I'm when's the first game on TV?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. First game is Saturday. I can't remember what the time is, but preseason action starts Saturday. I was looking at my phone because I already have the wallpaper for the schedule. October 23rd is when the season debuts. They play at Portland, but the first preseason game. And Larry, I don't know if you want to join me for the postgame action. I'm going postgame after every game, preseason included. I believe they play the Clippers in Hawaii. That's where they're at right now. Good for them. So Saturday.
Who is the player you're most excited to see? Because there's always one player that I'm excited to see. I'm struggling this year. I'll probably go with Buddy Hield.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Who would you go with?
Well, one is Kuminga, clearly, because I want to see whether or not this is the year where if he's going to turn into the guy, this is where we should start seeing it, right? Is this coming season. And he's worked his ass off this offseason to hopefully prepare and be the player we all hope he turns into. So Kuminga's one. And two is D'Anthony Melton, because I was watching, and I've said this before, but I was watching these clips of Jared Jack from the 2012-13 team. That was the one that upset the Nuggets in the first round, pushed the Spurs to 6 in the second round. They actually won a game in San Antonio in that series for the first time in like 20 years. And that's not, I'm not being hyperbolic saying that. They had gone like nearly 20 years without winning a game in San Antonio, and they did that in that playoff series. And Jared Jack was such a fundamental piece of that team. D'Anthony Melton reminds me a lot of him, a bulldog type shorter player who's strong, who can do everything, right? He can shoot, he can handle, he can play defense. So D'Anthony Melton is a wild card, man. I'm very curious to see what his impact is going to be. I hope it was money well spent, man. They had that mid-level exception for the first time in I don't know how many years, and they spent all of it on him. So I hope it was money well spent. And those are the guys I'm excited for. Great question, man. Yeah. So are we good? We done?
We're done. We're good. We're good.
I love it, dude. Okay, catch us next Tuesday. Follow Larry Krueger on all social media platforms at Sports Larry K. Follow me on Threads, Instagram at Dog Wild, on Twitter at Surf Journalist, where we'll post updates about times of shows and all that good stuff. Otherwise, Larry, love you, man. Thank you as always. Stay tuned. I got another show coming just next with Sophia Jones, where we'll talk about Media Day. Final thoughts, Larry? Are we good? We done? Anything else?
We're good, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, brother. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.